Yeah. I have seen this thumbnail and I'm curious. You will never look at He-Man the same way again. So I grew up with He-Man as a kid, so I wanna know. Plus, hot chic, so a double win in my opinion. So let's watch that and then we see where we are going after that.
By the power of Grayskull.
Man,
You think you knew He-Man? Nah, fam. You barely scratched the surface. I'm about to drop so many what the actual Eternia facts on you, you'll be side-eyeing Prince Adam for the rest of your nostalgic life.
oh, we are off to a good start. I like this.
So buckle up your fairy boots, hold aloft your magic sword, and scream it with me. I have the power!
I'm not gonna do that. I'm 42. I'm not gonna do that. I am not. I am too old for that stuff.
To blow your mind, let's start off with everything you thought you knew about He-Man probably isn't true. So get this, Prince Adam, aka He-Man, is literally half Earthling. His mom,
Okay.
Queen Marlena, straight up NASA astronaut. Yeah, she was
Wait,
on a
what?
solo mission to Europa when, boom, her ship crashes on Eternia. King Randor finds her, says, hey girl, marries her, and boom, He-Man is born.
You need rest.
I never saw that episode. Well, that's not surprising. I rarely watched any episode fully because I was a little kid and I didn't know how how times and TV works. So yeah, that explains it. But yeah, this is nice. Didn't know that. See, first fact, and I'm surprised.
Return with me to my palace. You shall be my guest while you recover.
A few days, you said. But I fell in love with you and with this planet. And I just couldn't bring myself to leave.
Bonus twist, in the original
You mean the woman fell in love with a king of a different planet? You know, every cliche possible. But of course, yeah, it's a nice story.
DC comic crossover, they had to explain how He-Man knew Superman, and it's because Marlena told little Adam bedtime stories about the Man of Steel. Imagine
Wait,
being
what?
tucked in at night with tales of Kryptonian uppercuts. What a flex. Even worse, imagine your worst enemy is actually your uncle. Okay, we need to talk about
What?
Skeletor. Evil, ripped, and somehow kind of sexy in a haunted skull kind of way. But here's the real plot twist. He's He-Man's freaking uncle. That's right, in the 2002 reboot, it was made clear that Skeletor was
Oh, in the reboot, this basically doesn't count. Actually, this doesn't really count for the old one. I can live with it for the new one, yeah.
originally Keldor, King Randor's ambitious brother.
How long I've waited for this, Randor.
Keldor wanted the throne, got denied, threw acid at Randor because subtlety is overrated, but it backfired. Literally, his face melted off. Enter Hordak, who saved his life and transformed him into this blue-skinned bonehead we all know and love. So now, instead of ruling Eternia, he spends his days shouting at Beastman and being roasted by his own minions.
You know, that's actually a good background story. At least way better than what we get these days.
Thanksgiving in that family? Awkward. Now here's where it gets even better. The legendary Alan Oppenheimer was the voice of Skeletor. Not just Skeletor, he also voiced Man-at-Arms, Cringer, and Merman. That means the guy was often having full-blown conversations with himself in character in completely different voices. Skeletor arguing with Cringer, that was Oppenheimer yelling at Oppenheimer. And get
In other words, that man had really high skills. Like skill for speech plus 100.
This. He created Skeletor's iconic screechy tone by blending the dramatic flair of a Shakespearean villain with the creepy edge of a goat.
The same fate awaits all who stand in my way, especially He-Man. Now, here is what we will do.
Seriously, that unforgettable voice wasn't in the script, it was all him. Even more mind-blowing, he was Vanity Smurf in the Smurfs. Yes, Skeletor was also a Smurf. And if that isn't range, then I don't know what is. Oh, and remember Falcor, the luck dragon from the Never-Ending Story? Yep, that's also him. From I have the power to never give up and good luck will find you. Oppenheimer was all over our childhoods. Born in 1930 and the man is still going strong, even voicing Skeletor again in He-Man Revelation well into his 90s. Absolute legend. Let's talk skin. Skeletor isn't wearing blue armor. Nope, that's his actual skin. He's a
we know.
an ancient race with blue skin who assassinated the original king Grayskull. In some stories, Randor and Skeletor were brothers with the same dad, but Randor got the throne because Skeletor was blue. Yep, full-blown space racism.
Of course, that's how it was. It's always something. Here, he's blue.
On an even worse note, did you know one of the main characters was secretly battling brain cancer while delivering all her iconic lines? Now let's talk about Teela, because she's way more important than most people give her credit for. Sure, He-Man was the sword and the catchphrase, but Teela? She's the legacy. She's the future sorceress of Castle Grayskull.
But the most important thing, hot redhead. Redhead with magic, who's also smart. Guess who boys had a crush on?
That's right. While He-Man's out there tossing boulders and dodging laser beams, Teela's on track to inherit literal ancient magic.
Looks like these dragons aren't so bad after all, when Beastman isn't controlling them.
Take him back, Teela.
In some versions, she's the sorceress' secret daughter. In others, she's a clone. And in the 2002 reboot, her dad might be Fitzo. I repeat, someone wrote Fitzo in the script, said it with a straight face, and everyone just rolled with it. But behind that fierce warrior
Fitzo
voice
or
was the
Fisto?
incredibly
I think it's
versatile
Fisto.
Landa Gary, who was basically the entire female cast of the show. Seriously. At times, she voiced up to 5 different women in a single episode. Teela, Evil Lynn, the Sorceress, Queen Marlena, all her. She gave each.
That must be kind of exhausting. Just think about it. Having to switch between 5 different voices in one day? And maybe even one record? That's hard.
Character their own vibe, using nothing but vocal tone and a bit of accent work. When asked how she pulled it off, her answer was pure legend. Improv, baby, and coffee. Lots of coffee. And she wasn't just talented, she was tough.
I wish I could believe you. I just don't think I'm special enough to do what you do. I don't even know why I was picked to substitute for you.
Linda Gary continued voicing roles even while battling brain cancer. Talk about real-life heroism. Her Shakespearean training gave characters like the Sorceress and Evil Lynn a depth that stood out from the usual Saturday morning fare. She didn't stop with He-Man either. Gary voiced Jane in Tarzan, Lord of the Jungle, tackled roles in She-Ra, Spider-Man, and his amazing friends, and yes, even the Smurfs. One woman.
Why is he mentioning the Smurfs all the time? No one cares about the real-life action Smurfs. Quote unquote, real-life action. They're all animated anyway. They could have just made actually an animated movie. But no, they have to always put live action into it because, I don't know, the producers are stupid.
An entire universe of voices. Total queen. Now switching from queen to king, sorry to tell you this, but He-Man wasn't as tough as you think. The next fact will have you looking at him completely different. Think about it. He-Man never actually hurt anybody. Seriously, not once. Across 130 episodes, he never stabbed anyone with that legendary power sword.
That's interesting. Never thought about that. But I also haven't seen all 130 episodes, so yeah. But that's interesting. He never actually used a sword. That's really interesting. And that's actually, well, it was made for children, so yeah, they couldn't really have him, cut arms off and stuff like that. That would have been, just imagine the outrage of all the mothers. The fathers wouldn't care. The fathers couldn't care less, but the mothers would all be crying.
Barely even threw a punch. What did he do? He threw villains into puddles, barrels, and the occasional mud pit like it was his part-time job. The sword? Mostly a glorified flashlight for cutting ropes, zapping rocks, and looking majestic in the sunset. Why so tame? Because the show was under heavy FCC scrutiny, and Filmation had to keep it squeaky clean. Every episode ended with a feel-good PSA like, don't bully your little brother, or maybe don't throw acid on your siblings. Real lessons for real kids. But here's the wild part. The guy voicing He-Man, John Irwin, wasn't even a full-time voice actor. He mainly worked in television production and only voiced characters on the side. Despite that, he nailed the role.
I hope the rest of you will leave the moon in peace.
Forget it, He-Man!
You might recognize his voice from
Man, the music is so good. It's just epic and you are the man. Go do the man things. Nothing like this exists today anymore.
elsewhere too. He was Reggie Mantle in the classic Archie cartoons and even voiced Morris the Cat in those iconic 9 Lives commercials. Yeah, from sarcastic feline to the most powerful man in the universe. Talk about range. And if you thought he had a whole studio crew hyping him up, nope. He recorded nearly every He-Man line solo, tucked away in his tiny supply closet at Filmation, with zero direction and no co-stars to play off of. Just him, the script, and his imagination. Most animated series use ensemble casts, or at least let actors bounce off of each other. But Irwin was out here summoning the power of Grayskull completely alone. But here's a bit of behind-the-scenes drama. When the 2002 He-Man reboot came around, they didn't bring Irwin back. Instead, they gave the role to Cam Clark, who, to be fair, is a legend in his own right, but fans were not having it. Irwin's voice had become so iconic that the change felt like a betrayal to many longtime MOTU diehards. How did you feel?
Yeah, that's it to the diehards. The thing is, you don't know how his voice sounds after 20 years of life. You don't know how his voice sounds. If he can still pull, making, it sounds like back then. You don't know. So complaining about that is maybe a little bit too much. But then again, I'm not a die-hard fan. So what do I know?
Feel about this? Let me know in the comments if you felt betrayed too, or if you didn't even notice. Orko, our favorite floating magical nuisance with a heart of gold and a spellbook full of flops.
Yeah.
Originally, this clumsy wizard was named Gorpo, but that got changed pretty quick. Why? Because animators realized that if they put a big O on his shirt, they could flip the animation and reuse it without the letter being backward. That's right.
Okay, that's smart. That's smart. And you have to, animation is expensive, so they have to save money wherever they can.
Orko's name was changed for cost-cutting reasons. Genius level cheapness.
And now for my grand finale. I call my latest trick eggs over easy.
And speaking of budget hacks, guess who voiced Orko? Lou Scheimer, the executive producer and co-founder of Filmation. Yep, Orko was literally voiced by the man who made the show. He didn't stop there. Lou also voiced a bunch of other characters, believe it or not, under the fake names like Eric Gundon, so the studio could dodge union rules and avoid paying extra actors. Using aliases helped him stay under the radar while voicing
also a way to save money and have the how are they called, unions, keep the unions away from your ass.
multiple roles. Basically, Orko wasn't just a character, he was corporate cost-cutting personified. But Lou wasn't all loopholes and shortcuts. He was a legit talent. He performed the musical bard intros in Black Star and even sang background harmonies in other Filmation theme songs. So yeah, next time you hear Orko flub a spell or crash into a wall, just remember, that squeaky chaos gremlin was brought to life by the same guy running the whole show, saving money and singing behind the scenes. Legend. She-Ra, He-Man's twin sister, had a sword.
Oh yeah, She-Ra. Who didn't love She-Ra? A boy's first or second crush in the 80s. She was good. By the way, have you noticed something? No obese chicks in the 80s. All women are extremely attractive. All of them. Even the mom. You know, the almost 50-year-old mom, still super hot. Like, it's not even close to what we see today. Everything today is so ugly and so just ugh. But back then, yeah, super hot chicks, smart, strong, can do everything they need to do. But they have to learn the things first. That's the important thing. They were actual characters and not just, strong and independent woman. Because, the women back then were actually a little bit smarter than today.
That could turn into anything. A rope? Sure. A boomerang? Why not? An ice maker? Yes. Because you never know when Eternia runs out of ice for your magical margaritas. Melendi Britt, the voice of She-Ra, had the scream over 100 times and nailed it every time.
I am She-Ra! She-Ra, She-Ra!
She also voiced Catra. That's right. She-Ra and her evil ex, same voice, iconic.
Jesus Christ, that's Catra? Give me a second. See this? That's the Catra from the last show. With all the political correct things. Catra from back then. What would you watch? What would your children watch? Your children would rather watch, the super attractive one. I can guarantee you, 100%. But this wasn't made for children. This was made for, people. We can't really say anything bad about or we go to prison. That's how it is.
Her vocal range was so intense, some people on set thought they were hearing two separate actresses. But behind the scenes, total mystery. Melendi was notoriously private, never breaking character, and vanishing from the spotlight between projects. Oh, and here's the creepy twist. She was also Batgirl in the ultra-obscure 1977 New Adventures of Batman, a show so rushed
1977?
and underfunded that scripts were sometimes recorded before they were even finished.
Oh my god, I watched that show. Well, kind of watched that show in the 80s. Even before I went to school. And I mean, not early in the morning before I went to school. I mean, before I was in school. Jesus Christ. I remember that. And I liked it. I think I remember and still thinking that it kind of looked odd. But that's, well, now I know why, because it was so cheap that they couldn't animate it like it should look.
Years later, she popped back up in Robot Chicken and made a blink and you miss it cameo in She-Ra and the Princess of Power. A haunting little reminder that the original voice of Etheria's greatest hero was still watching from the shadows. Let's pour one out for Stinkor, the smelly villain who never made it into the cartoon. Why?
Really?
Because the producers thought he was too dumb.
Call me Stinkor!
This coming from the show that gave us Snout Spout, the firefighter elephant. The toy smelled like patchouli, like literally. The stink was so baked into the plastic. Some Stinkors really reek to this day. That's
Jesus. That's just, that's just disgusting. I mean, not the idea for it, but that you have the toys to smell, that's disgusting. That's just, ugh.
commitment.
Get your soap stinking fingers off my merch, you dirty merc!
Did they just put a burp over that? Did they really do that? I can't even. What is going on? Why? Why would you do that? That's disgusting. I mean, sure, boys might like that. Might think that's funny, yeah, okay. I can see that.
Stinkor never had a cartoon voice, but in the fan parodies, he's often voiced by Cam Clark, voice of Leonardo in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, who later voiced Prince Adam in the 2002 reboot. So yes,
That was
Leonardo
Prince
the Ninja
Adam?
Turtle became Prince Adam. Cross-universe blow up. Speaking of cross-universe, can you imagine why He-Man would have anything to do with Spider-Man? Listen
What?
to this next fact and you'll see why there's a huge connection that almost ruined one of them. And now, possibly the most insane fact. He-Man is the reason why we didn't get a Spider-Man movie in the 80s. Canon Films
Oh.
had the rights, but instead spent all their money on Masters of the Universe and Spider-Man 4. Both bombed hard, so Spider-Man had to wait a few decades to get his web-slinging big break. James Tolkien, who played the villain Detective Lubick in the He-Man movie, is also Principal Strickland from Back to the Future. So yeah, He-Man shared screen time with the guy who yelled at Marty McFly. Respect. Here's where things get wild.
No, that was not really. Why did you even put that in there? I mean, the last bit about the actor. Why? Just runtime, I guess.
Erica Shemer, daughter of Filmation producer Lou Shemer, wasn't just hanging around the studio, she was
Oh, by the way, as a kid, I watched the He-Man movie a couple of times, and I really liked it. Which shows I was stupid as a kid, like every kid is. Who could have guessed? But for a kid, that movie was fun. Even though the movie was really, really, really bad.
secretly voicing tons of kids and background characters on He-Man and She-Ra, all before she was even old enough to vote. And get this, because of tight budgets and union restrictions, she often worked under the table, uncredited and unpaid for early gigs. But her real gut punch? Erica was a closeted lesbian, working in one of the most conservative corners of 1980s Hollywood. She had to hide who she was for fear of being blacklisted, while working on shows all about justice, truth, and fighting oppression. Years later, she finally came out publicly, became a fierce LGBTQ+ advocate, and even returned as a voice cameo in He-Man Revelation, reclaiming her space in a legacy that almost erased her. From space moms to smelly villains, reused animation hacks to shocking voice actor careers,
Space Moms. Now that would be a good title for something. If you get what I mean.
it's safe to say He-Man was weirder and wilder than we ever knew. So now that you know He-Man's uncle is a blue space racist and She-Ra's sword doubles as a kitchen appliance, what's the weirdest or funniest He-Man moment you remember from your childhood? Drop it in the comments. I'm ready to laugh. And if you love this ride through Eternia's madness, like the video, ring the bell, subscribe, and I'll keep bringing you the juicy, weird, and downright awkward truths behind your favorite cartoons.
Here. Why is there a turtle with breasts? I, I'm all, I'm so close to being done. You know, I'm not even streaming for half an hour now. I'm almost done. I almost want to just lay in a bed and cry. What's going on? Yeah, that's that was She-Man. The video was good. Not really that much about, you know, actually unbelievable things about He-Man and the show. More like, you know, what the things in the background. But yeah, that's it. It was neat. It was okay. Yeah.